Hello everyone. Today I have come up with a new video. In this video, I shall give you complete analysis of Thomas Hardy's poem Afterwards. Let us know a few important things about the poet Thomas Hardy. He was born in 1840 and he died in 1928. He is best remembered for his novels such as Jude the Obscure, The Mayor of Casterbridge, and Tess of the D'Urbervilles. There are many other renowned novels written by Hardy, and we rather know him as a novelist. But during his lifetime, most of his fictions received negative reviews, and this was primarily the reason behind his turning to poetry. He contributed much to the field of poetry. About 1,000 poems were published in his lifetime. From 1898 until his death in 1928, Hardy published 8 volumes of poetry. Now, let us know a few important things about the poem. Hardy was 77 years old when this poem afterwards was published as a part of Moments of Vision and Miscellaneous Verses in November 1917. This poem can be regarded as Hardy's own elegy, and you can call this poem a kind of epitaph. Epitaph, epitaph. Okay? It was read at a memorial service for Hardy shortly after his death. This poem is written in 5 stanzas of 4 lines each. Such stanzas are called quatrains. He expresses what he imagines people saying of him after his death. So, in this poem, he imagines what people say of a person like him, deeply in love with the countryside. The poet persona or the speaker of the poem here speculates about the aftermath of his own death. He wonders how people might remember him when he is gone. He sincerely hopes that people would recall his careful observation of the mysteries of nature, the changes that take place in the natural world in rhythm with the universe. The poet here indirectly suggests that one can find true joy and a meaningful life in this rhythm of the universe, expressed through the movement of life in the natural world. So now let us move on to the line by line explanation of the poem. Let's start with the opening lines, lines 1 to 4. When the present has latched its postern behind my tremulous stay, and the May month flaps its glad green leaves like wings, delicate filmed as new spun silk, will the neighbors say he was a man who used to notice such things? Students, notice here the meaning of the word postern is back door and tremulous means quivering. So the poem opens with the poet's speculation about his own death. He imagines the situation and people's reaction after his death, what people would say about him after his death. So, time has been personified here through the word present, closing the back door after graciously hosting the poet during his temporary and vulnerable stay in this world of change. So, present has been imagined as a host, as a person who is hosting the poet, who is a kind of guest in this world, because his stay in this world is not permanent, it is temporary. And notice that in the very opening line, the poet has referred to his stay on this earth as tremulous, means quivering. So this may also refer to the nervous system, the emotional strain, or the age-related issues that are caused by his old age. He was 77 years old when he wrote this poem. So it might be a reference to that condition of aging. And on the other hand, it may also refer to the vulnerable nature of his stay on this earth. It is quivering, it is not based on a firm foundation. Okay, so it is going to be temporary. And the May month flaps its glad green leaves like wings. So notice here that the poet here talks about the inevitability of death. He imagines that he has left this world unnoticed by anybody. You have seen that in the first line, the poet has said that present, who has hosted the poet so graciously, has locked the back door. So the poet is exiting from the back door, means his departure from this world goes unnoticed by one and all. Okay, so nobody notices the departure of the poet. Now, but even after his death, the world moves on in its own rhythm. Life continues to flourish in the form of glad green leaves of May, that is spring. This juxtaposition of a quiet and unnoticed death with the vitality of glad green leaves of spring flapping their wings in the next line brings out the contrast more poignantly. The poet here indicates the coexistence of life and death. The poet has described the new leaves as delicate filmed as new spun silk, which indicates the soft, silky smooth, and delicate movement of life at play in the elements of nature. So, everything in this nature is effortless, everything is smoothly moving on. Okay, so all the movements that we find in this poem are smooth and delicate, right? Okay. The poet further wonders if his neighbors should recall him as a person who used to notice these delicate movements of nature. His love for nature is reflected in his desire to be remembered as a person noticing these little wonders of nature. Again, this line reveals the desire of all human beings to be remembered even after death. And this is a kind of common human tendency. We, all of us, want to be remembered by others once we leave this world. So, by writing this poem, Hardy actually preserves the memories of his temporary stay on earth, how he has spent his life praising the mysteries of nature, observing the movements of life in the countryside. All these things remained engraved in this poem, and readers of like readers of posterity will enjoy this poem and will look at the poet from the perspective of the poet himself. We will try to look at Hardy the way he wants us to praise him, wants us to look at him. Now, let us move on to lines 5 to 8. If it be in the dusk when, like an eyelid's soundless blink, the dewfall hawk comes crossing the shades to alight upon the wind-warped upland thorn, a gazer may think, to him this must have been a familiar sight. So here, notice the poet has written if it be in the dusk. Here, this word it actually refers to the moment of his death. So he imagines that he, if he leaves this world in the dusk as silently as the soundless blink of an eyelid, or when the night hawk flies quietly across the sky like the soundless blink of an eyelid to land on a bush, then a gazer or someone watching the hawk fly may think that the dead poet must have been familiar with such flights of the hawk. Students, here this phrase is very important, that like an eyelid soundless blink, because this actually refers to both. It may refer to the departure of the poet from this physical world. His departure is as silent as the movement of an eyelid, the blink of an eyelid, the soundless blinking of an eyelid. At the same time, it also refers to the nighthawk's movement, which is also as silent as the blinking of an eyelid. So the poet here says that like the people who are left behind, the his neighbors, his friends, who will watch the hawk fly, will they ever think of the poet and say that he must have been familiar with such flights of the hawk? Now, let us move on to the next few lines. If I pass during some nocturnal blackness, mothy and worm, when the hedgehog travels furtively over the lawn, one may say he strove that such innocent creatures should come to no harm, but he could do little for them, and now he is gone. So, in this third stanza, the images have become darker. Okay, and in this stanza, it is for the first time that the poet has been depicted as being involved in certain action. Okay, he's not simply an observer here. He is involved into involved with some action. So here the poet imagines himself dying in the summer night when moths fly through the warm air and the hedgehogs move secretively across the lawn. He imagines that one of his neighbors may remember him as someone who took great care to protect these innocent animals, but could not do much for them due to his death. So, in this stanza, for the first time, he has been depicted as being involved in some action, but at the same time, that action has not been shown as something fruitful. Okay, he could do little for the hedgehogs, and now he is gone. So, death has interrupted that action. Okay, now lines 13 to 16. If, when hearing that I have been stilled at last, they stand at the door, watching the full starred heavens that winter sees, will this thought rise on those who will meet my face no more? He was one who had an eye for such mysteries. So the poet here wonders about the reaction of his neighbors at the news of his death. If the neighbors standing at the door and watching the full starred clear winter sky would think of the poet as someone who was a keen observer of such mysteries of nature, who used to observe intently such star-studded clear sky, such movements of stars in the sky. So the poet is still concerned about the reaction of his neighbors, his friends, or the people who will be left behind. Now, lines 17 to 20. And will any say when my bell of acquaintance is heard in the gloom, and a crossing breeze cuts a pause in its outrollings, till they rise again as they were a new bell's bloom? He hears it not now, but used to notice such things. So here, bell of acquaintance actually refers to the funeral bell. Okay? So the poet here wonders if his neighbors and friends will remember him when they will hear the sounds of the funeral bell in the darkness, and when a passing breeze interrupts the sounds of the bell until they start echoing again like a new bell. If they will remember, though the poet no longer can hear these sounds, he used to notice such things. So here I think that this image of the bell, or the funeral bell, and the image of the breeze interrupting that bell has been used as a metaphor for life and death. So, death has been depicted here as a kind of pause between lives, between uh, this life and the life that the poet will get in his next birth. Okay, so this pause, death is simply a pause between these two lives. So the poet actually talks about the journey of the soul, the journey of the soul, and death is simply a pause in this journey, because the journey of the soul continues from one birth to another. The poem emphasizes on the coexistence of life and death, growth and decay, and together they create the rhythm of the universe. Both are very necessary for the existence of the universe. So, with the death of the poet, life around him does not stop, it rather moves on in its own unique rhythm. The poet's intense desire to be remembered after his death also reveals his desire to live in the memories of his near and dear ones. And this desire actually reflects the human desire or human aspiration for immortality. We all want to live forever, as if forever. Okay, the way we live, it seems that we are going to live here forever. So that is a basic human tendency to desire immortality, to crave for immortality. And the poet also craves for that immortality, and probably he achieves that immortality through his art, through, through this particular poem. So, viewers and students, I think you have understood the poem now. And if you find this explanation useful or helpful in any way, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.